The Texas House and Senate are debating the future of standardized testing across K-12 schools.
Last night, the State House passed a bill with near unanimous approval that would replace the STAAR test. GMET's Marshall Farmer is here now to explain what state lawmakers are proposing and the differences between the House and Senate's vision for standardized testing. Marshall, good morning.
Good morning. The House and Senate have a lot of work ahead of them before their June 2nd legislative deadline. Their ideas for standardized testing across the state have changed a lot since yesterday evening, but both proposals still have some similarities. The majority of Texas lawmakers agree that they want to remove STAAR testing altogether and instead replace it with multiple smaller tests done throughout the year. Lawmakers and school officials say smaller, more frequent testing would let schools change their lesson plans to target weak spots. They also say that the STAAR test is too rigorous, taking away too much time from classroom learning to instead prepare for and take the test. But here's where the House and Senate disagree. The House wants to grade students based on other students' performances, while the Senate wants to grade based on predetermined benchmarks set for each grade level. The House wants to push these changes as soon as this fall, while the Senate wants to give the Texas Education Agency until 2028 to make the new tests. Now, as of this morning, no day has been set on when the House and Senate will debate these changes, but they only have until June 2nd before the end of the regular session to come to an agreement. We'll keep you updated as we learn more about future plans and dates. Lane, Deanna.
All right, Marshall, thanks for that.